what prayer means to people of different religions.
Aren't we more alike than we are different?
There's so much to learn about my neighbor's faith and what matters to her. But where do I start?
Bringing people of different religious backgrounds together to share their beliefs, what inspires them, the stories they have. This is People of Faith with Carole Mikita on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome, everyone. So glad that you could join us today. We have an author in studio who has written a book with a most charming and unusual title. It simply states, "Does this insecurity make me look fat?" Michelle Wilson is our guest today. She's a stay-at-home mom, a blogger, a speaker, and a writer. Through serving a full-time mission, teaching seminary and Sunday school classes, and speaking at firesides and conferences, she's developed a love of the gospel and a simplicity. She is a lover of God, family, laughter, and chocolate. Pretty much, she says, in that order. Michelle lives with her husband, Jerry, and their 3 children in Washington State, and it's lovely to have you with us. Thanks so much.
I'm glad to be here.
Talk to me about how you decided to put all of these wonderful stories and thoughts into a book. You're laughing already.
I am laughing already. This subject of insecurity is one that's very dear to my heart. I struggled a lot with it in high school. Mm-hmm. And I started a blog about 8 years ago called My Dates with God. And I started writing and sharing some of these stories and very similar kinds of thoughts and encouragement. And I got a really, really good response from a lot of people. And I thought, it would just be great if I could put it out there. Just to see who else could take the encouragement that I needed. And also, my daughter's 15, and I thought I see some of those similar struggles that I had in high school in her. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought I'd have a go at it.
Well, and it's a really comfortable size that you can slip into a handbag. Yes. or carry with you wherever you are, and take it out and read one of the sub-chapters in the larger chapters. And that's what's it is a comfortable book, and it's full of information and really good stories. And
thank you.
So you're welcome. Obviously, you're saying that it is a pep talk, but it includes humor alongside very serious situations that you address. That combination, I think that's part of your personality, but you insisted on that coming together of those two concepts.
Yeah, I very much write how I talk. A lot of people are writers who love to speak, and I'm a speaker that loves to write. My first love is speaking, and so when I write a book, it's very much as if I was talking to someone. Yeah. And I have to infuse humor because I just love to laugh, and I think that unlocks an ability to learn and just to be able to understand things when you're laughing. So yeah, that very much has a lot of laughter in there, and I've just really, really enjoyed the process of writing. It's been very cathartic to me, but I do love the short chapters. I have a short attention span, and so I like to be able to pick something up and read it and be done in 2 minutes and be able to put it down and not still wonder what's going to happen next.
It's important to ponder in this one.
And it gives you time to ponder, too.
All right, so you begin with a funny subtitle, Pity Party on Aisle 9, but it's a serious comment that you let us in on in terms of, and you mentioned high school, a very difficult time for you.
It was a difficult time. The interesting thing, of course, in hindsight, is understanding that the difficulty came from within myself, how I perceived myself, and my insecurity. I didn't feel good about myself, and I allowed those feelings to let myself feel bad. And then I acted as though I wasn't smart. And the end being this terrible secret that I hid for a long time. A lot of people didn't know this, so I, of course, decided to put it out in a book, that I ended up not graduating from high school. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an embarrassment, a major embarrassment for a long time.
I'm sure.
And, when you want to write something and you want to touch someone, you have to be authentic and you have to be real. And so I decided to put that in there at the very beginning to say, hey, I really, really struggled with this. And because of these choices that I made 20-something years ago, it still affects me now. And how do I work through that process of acknowledging what I did, but letting go of those tough feelings? And they're hard, they're residual, they stay. And so I began this book talking about this pity party just a couple years ago. I thought, okay, I'll try to go back to college again and we'll see what happens. And I look up my transcripts and I see those bad grades, and it just started me on this tailspin of, oh my goodness, maybe I'm not smart. And then, when you feel bad for yourself,
yes,
everything else piles on. And we can always come up with an amazing list of, and I'm not that, and I'm not that, and I say silly things, and I can't cook well like my friends. And by the end of the day, I just felt awful. It was terrible.
You were in a puddle, basically.
Complete puddle. It was bad. But the next morning, through a lot of prayer and a good night's rest, I felt a lot better. And one of the reasons why I shared this is because I really want people to understand, as bad as I felt, that I allowed myself to feel, and that I allowed the adversary to join me in my pity party during the day, because he really likes to root us on when we're doing things like that. It was God that made me feel that much better. He has the power to help us as we try to redirect our focus and try to pull ourselves out of those. He has that power to pull us up as we're reaching up. So that was very important for me to start the book with the understanding that, it's hard to feel good about yourself, but He's there to help.
And that's a beautiful place to start, because you moved on to asking God, and what happened next after hitting the wall with not finishing high school. You made a major change in terms of a matter of faith, and that was to serve a mission.
Yeah. And that really was the point in time where I began to find my worth. Up to that point, I had been looking sideways, looking at other people, hiding from myself, embarrassed about what I was doing. I covered it up really well. I've always had very spunky personality, and always, been the jokester. So a lot of people probably didn't know that I really struggled with that lack of confidence, which I think a lot of people do. We hide it really, really well. But when I decided to serve a mission, and I really delved into the scriptures, and I really worked on my relationship with God, when I stopped looking side to side and started looking up for my worth and looking inward, that did change me. And it changed me, but partly it helped me to lift myself above where I was for a different perspective. And I started to see myself as He did. And I realized I wasn't terrible. After all, I've always been pretty good. I made some poor choices, obviously, but I allowed myself to believe that I wasn't good enough. And,
this idea that women compare, or at least we admit, much more than men. I'm not sure whether men just don't talk about that. I haven't decided, but we certainly talk about it, and the evidence of the idea of that manifests itself in so many ways in our society.
Yeah. It's. I think men do that, but they seem to be more the macho. I can lift that and I'm stronger. We do compare ourselves, and I think in part it's because we have this innate drive to figure out where we belong. So we walk into a room and we want to, she's this and she's that, and how do I compare up? How do I measure up? How do I fit in? And we're trying to figure out who we are. And that comparing is really hard. And it's really hard when you've got someone telling you you're great and you've got someone else telling you that you're not.
And that has happened to you. You are so wonderfully honest. As you said, it's best to be honest when you're writing a book. But I thought, oh boy, I don't know whether I would say. People have been so odd in their phraseology to you.
Yes.
There are certainly the compliments that come your way. And then other people, for example, I remember I don't like you.
Oh,
I couldn't believe that one.
It was a lovely woman that I worked with. And, I enjoy her. We're very different personalities. I'm all about hugging and she's all about work. She's very pragmatic and I'm just, woo! And one day we were talking and she just says, I don't get you and I really don't like you. And what do you say to that?
I don't know.
In high school, I got that often, and I believed it.
Yes, you did.
But it took me a long time, and I was able to smile and say, that's okay, because I like me. And that's okay to like yourself. I think sometimes we think, we can't say that because that sounds arrogant, or that sounds this. But God wants you to like yourself. He likes you. He made you. He wants you to be able to like yourself.
We are visiting with Michelle Wilson, the author of Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat? We have so much more to discuss. Please stay with us.
When we learn about each other, we see how truly alike we really are. This is People of Faith with Carole Mikita on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
A couple of questions for you here. Thanks for being with us. Does this insecurity make me look fat? Or does this confidence make me look magnificent? Why do clothing stores hang funhouse mirrors in their dressing rooms? The laundry doesn't cry when it's not folded, so why should I? Can I be confident even if an elevator calls me fat? These are observations from Michelle Wilson's humorous and poignant new book titled that first question, Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat? Available where Latter-day Saint products are sold. And once again, welcome, Michelle. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
All the Little Leaves is a subtitle in this first chapter, and talk to me about what that means.
So the title of that little story comes from when I was 14 and I got my first pair of glasses. Up until then, I didn't realize I needed glasses. I thought that the trees and the leaves in the trees were just soft and beautiful, and the words on the chalkboard were fuzzy, and that's just how life was. And on my way home from getting my glasses, everything seemed to look very different. And the one thing in particular that caught my attention was this giant tree by our house. And I noticed that as I looked at it, I could see the detail of every leaf. And it was very life-changing for me just because I began to understand at that point the power of perspective, how I hadn't changed, but because I wore glasses, my ability to see the things that were already around me began to change. And perspective is such an important part of this book. That's why it's called, Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat? It's all about how we see ourselves and life and the trials in life and how we see God. And when we can learn to see things through His eyes, through His perspective, it's just like borrowing a pair of His glasses. Can I borrow your glasses? Put it on, and you can see things with a clarity, and you can see things a little bit different, a little more truer to what they really are. I think our personal glasses sometimes can get a little muddied with fear and guilt and all those other just enemies, what I call enemies of perspective. And so it's a great exercise to try to find out how He sees us and sees life, and really just borrow His glasses so you can have that perspective.
That's a beautiful idea. And you follow this up with getting rid of things we don't need, which leads to uncluttering your mind. And I actually thought about the last time I cleaned out a drawer or a closet or something, and all of a sudden I felt so much better because I don't know of what I was doing with the stuff, or that I had taken the time to make something in my life a little less cluttered. It was wonderfully helpful.
It's therapeutic, isn't it? And then you realize, I cleaned out my closet the other day, and I realized there were clothes in there, seriously, from the early 90s. Some of them are coming back in style, but some not so much. But it's also good to emotionally go in there and see what's in there, and then ask yourself, do I need these feelings? Do they help me be the person that I am now? And then you can make that decision, just like cleaning out your closet. You have a garage sale, you let things go. You can do that with those emotional things that are shoved in the back of your closet. You can let go of some of those feelings that really may have pertained to you then, but not now. And one of the things I talk about in my book is not let who you were then compromise who you are now. And I think a lot of us, especially when I look back at my high school stint, that was a long time ago.
Yes.
And I'm a different person. I hope I am. We all should be. We all should be continually learning and growing. And it's important to look back at experiences and keep the memories, but let go of the negative emotions attached to them.
And now you have perspective as you're looking at the younger generation,
Right.
your children and others, that all of this information is valuable because you deeply remember what it was like to be 15 years old.
I do, and I talk to my daughter who's 15 and share this, and she's doing a lot better than I am, and I'm grateful for it. It's one of the best things that's come out of doing this, is how happy she is.
And that's the other message that I loved about it, is because we spend a lot of time worrying about our children or grandchildren, as the case may be, instead of recognizing the wealth of information, knowledge, experience that we've gathered, and they are better. They are better than we are. We just need to add to it and reassure them of the direction in which they're headed, or
Right.
to help them if they hit the wall the way we did.
Yeah, and let them know that we know how they feel, that we understand. I went through this, and so I can talk to her when she comes home and she's frustrated about school. And, I write, there's a story in here that one day she went to a church dance and a boy told her she was perfect, and she was just felt so wonderful. And the next day, a friend came to her house and said, you're just not the Paige we used to love. You're just not good enough. And she felt awful. And so I was able to sit with her and say, look, in a 24-hour period, you went from being amazing to being nothing, but you're the same person. And so be able to talk with her and say, I know how that feels, and where do you look to find your worth, and talk to her about, looking up for the worth. It's been really great.
Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat? A new book from Michelle Wilson. We'll be right back.
What inspires people of faith to do the things they do? We're learning about each other on People of Faith on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Does this insecurity make me look fat? I love that phrase, which is why I'm repeating it all the time. Author Michelle Wilson has chosen it as the title of her book, and it is an exploration in why we do the things we do to ourselves and how to rise above those and look up and find God and find out who we really are and what's really important in our lives. And obviously this book is available where Latter-day Saint products are sold. Michelle, talk to me about, you've been so open about your own life. How old were you then when you realized you had your own faith?
Well, I grew up a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in a good home, and I was taught the precepts of the gospel. And there was always this underlying of, yeah, it must be true. It must be true. But one of the things I love about the gospel and about what my parents taught me was that I can only lean on their understanding for so long, and then I need to find my own. And as a teenager, you go through that period, especially when I'm feeling insecure and doubting and wondering, is this true? And I actually remember the moment that it happened. It was one of those seminal moments. I was helping someone teach a primary class. And it was Christmas time, and she brought her baby in, and we had this little baby Jesus, and this little 7-year-old girl looked up at me and she said, "It's true, isn't it?" And when she said that, the spirit that I felt confirmed to me that it was, that all the things that I had taught, that I had chosen to believe in my mind, that they were true. And that was a real important point of conversion in my life.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You talk a lot about various concepts in our lives like fear and doubt, which sometimes come on a daily basis. But I love this. Quoting from Timothy here in Paul taught, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." That's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. It controls us, or tries to, a lot.
It does. And I don't believe that God intends that to be the rudder for our lives. I love Paul. I call him my Bible boyfriend because he is amazing to me, the passion that he has and the commitment. And he had reason to fear. And he had reason. He didn't make the best choices. And if anyone could have gone and still doubted and felt guilty about things, it could have been him. But he understood his purpose, and he went fearlessly and taught and did amazing things. And when I found that scripture, I've always loved that verse about fear. It really did strike home. It's one of those things that get in the way of our perspective. The adversary loves to add to our fears. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. What if I fail? What if I mess up? And if we let fear run our lives, then we won't be able to take advantage of those amazing opportunities that I think God is preparing for us, and opportunities that will cause us to stretch and to grow. Someone at church a couple of weeks ago said, if you want to excel and improve, you need to step out of your comfort zone. And there's not a lot of fear in our comfort zone, but when we step out, it's out there. And it's okay. It's okay to face it. And you don't have to wait for it to go away. You can still do it even if you're afraid. And that's what courage is. It's not being afraid. It's doing something even if you're afraid.
And as always, you push us toward the concept of of prayer, because if you have that partner by your side, that's going to disappear. Fear is not part of the Lord's perspective.
Yeah, and he doesn't intend, he is never led by fear. He doesn't work by fear. He doesn't intend for us to have that guide our lives. That's the opposite of faith, to choose to believe. And again, it's okay to feel fear as long as you don't give it that power to keep you from progressing and from doing the things that he would have you do, and the righteous things and good things that you want to do and that you could do.
Perfect. The other idea is doubt, and it is, you admit, healthy to consider what it is you believe. A couple of one scripture and one piece from C.S. Lewis. This is also Paul. Be of good cheer, for I believe God that it shall be even as it was told me. And C.S. Lewis, faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods. And I loved that
women
one.
Changing moods? What?
What? Is that even possible? Every 5 minutes, maybe, sometimes?
Yes.
That's incredibly insightful and helpful from Paul, because we all have those moments, and we have to go back and say, I actually do believe what God told me.
Right.
Okay, so stop. And then, just because I've hit the wall, does that mean I'm throwing everything out?
Right. And us as women, we can be very emotionally driven. And just because we feel emotions and they feel real, it doesn't mean that they are necessarily real. And we change moods, and we've got chemistry working for us and against us sometimes, and time, and all of these different factors that do affect our mood and do affect. And then, of course, you've got when difficult things come.
Yes.
And I think we can all look back at points in our life where we go, I know that. I believe that. And one of the reasons why I keep a journal is because I love to record those moments, because there are times, especially when you're standing in front of something frightening, whether it's an illness or a loss or just something unexpected, and you go, wait a minute, I thought I knew that, but I'm not so sure. But that's what C.S. Lewis says, is you go back to that faith that you had, because we know that God's unchanging. It talks about that in the scriptures. And so we have to go back to that time that we knew and we had that relationship with God, and he spoke to us, and we go, okay, we're okay. I know the scenery's changed a little bit, and I may feel a little bit different, but I'm going to choose to still believe what I believed when the seas were calm, because it's the same truth, whether they're rough or calm. Yes,
there can be vastly different circumstances suddenly.
Yes.
And you're surrounded by chaos sometimes, and you have to find that center. Otherwise, you join the chaos.
Right.
Whether it's emotional or mental or the very situation or physical. You say that you just asked the question here, who is God? And it's really important to know how to answer that question, and you share a situation with your son, and kids climb, and they do balancing acts all the time.
They do. He was in 5th grade, and he had decided to climb over a railing, and I don't think he decided to fall, but it happened. And to break his fall, he put his arms out. And so we took him to the emergency room, and because he had hit his head, he broke his arm, but he also hit his head. Yeah. So they wanted to do a test. So you go in this big cold room, this big white tube, and he's already in pain. He's not casted yet, and they tell him that he has to lie perfectly still. You don't want to see your child hurt. No. But he has to go through this so they could see what's wrong and so they could help him. So I'm standing right there and I'm holding his hand, and that's when they come and they say, you can't be here next to him. You have to go across around this wall. And I thought, I can't leave him. He's hurting. I'm supposed to make things better. Yeah. But I knew that I had to remove myself so he could go through this, so he could be helped. Yeah. And so I stood on the other side of this two-way mirror. And I remember he called to me and he says, Mom, are you there? When he said that, I wanted to cry. Yeah. And I said, I'm here. Are you all right? And he says, as long as I can hear you, I'll be okay. And when he said that, of course, I'm so glad that it was not a two-way mirror, because I teared up a little bit. The faith that he had in me. And I think about that experience often. I think, Heavenly Father, we may think that he's not there, but he's just right on the other side of that one-way mirror. There's some things that he has to remove himself from so we can experience. It's the only way that we can become like him. It's the only way that we can learn, when sometimes he has to be there. But the beautiful thing is, he really is a prayer away. All we have to do is say, Father, are you there? And he says, I'm here. And then as long as we hear his voice, we will be okay.
So you say we have expectations of God. He has expectations of us.
Yes, he does. He does. And they're not the kind of expectations that you would think. One of my favorite expectations is that he expects us to be imperfect. And I'm really, really good at that. I think as women, we like to think, okay, we need to be perfect, and we want to have the perfect hair and the perfect house, the perfect Pinterest board, the perfect everything. I don't understand Pinterest, and I think I'm okay.
I think I am too, yes.
I think I have a board. Sometimes I pin things. I don't know if it works. But he expects us to be imperfect.
Yes.
We're that way because that way we need him, and we're drawn to him. He expects us to have joy. He expects us to seek knowledge. He expects us to seek him out and to find him and allow him in our lives. So he very much has things that he expects us, because he has confidence in us, and he knows that we can have those things.
Does this insecurity make me look fat? We're having a wonderful discussion with author Michelle Wilson. Her book available where Latter-day Saint products are sold. Please stay with us.
When we learn about each other, we see how truly alike we really are. This is People of Faith with Carole Mikita on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
When we see ourselves with God's eternal perspective, we can feel confident and whole, even in our imperfection. This comes from a new book by Michelle Wilson, titled, Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat? And she hopes that by the end of the book, you will turn that into, does this confidence make me look magnificent? And it is available where Latter-day Saint products are sold. But I have to say, you quote scripture and C.S. Lewis, and you share so many wonderful experiences from your own life. You want people of all faiths, women of all faiths particularly, to feel confident to pick up this book, and they're not going to find anything strange in it. They're going to be able to relate.
Of course. The idea of finding out who you are and looking to God for your worth is universal. And the idea of a woman struggling to figure out who she is universal. It's not religion specific. There are some Mormon undertones. There are a few Book of Mormon verses in there. But the things that I talk about in here do apply to all of us. We all want to find our worth, and we all hope that it would be something. And the good news that I want people to understand from this book is that you're not doing as bad as you think you are.
That's right.
And you're stronger than you are, and that you realize you are. And he wants you to understand that. The book I have in two parts. The first one is Learn to See, because there really is power in that perspective and lifting yourself up and being able to see things differently. But the greater power comes from understanding the power that we have to choose. Mm-hmm. Confidence can only give us so much joy. And I'm so much happier now that I have a greater amount of confidence because it's come from him. But the real joy comes when you take that confidence and it enables you to do the things that God has prepared for you, to touch the people he has for you to touch, to take advantage of opportunities, things that you didn't think you could do. I went back to school. You can think about some of the things that maybe you didn't think you'd be able to do, and you can do them. And we have that power and that responsibility. I talk about the word if. It's one of my favorite words. I say it's the small hinge on the giant doors of our life, because it really is up to us. Mm-hmm. The woman that had the issue of blood in the New Testament.
I love that story.
I have always loved her for her courage, because she understood. She said, if I but touch him, he was there. But she understood it was up to her to reach out. And he is there. I talk about how he's there in the book, and there is purpose to our pain, and there's a reason that we go through what we go through, and there is more joy to be had in life. It's not all supposed to be about pain. But if we choose to believe and choose to have that faith and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and be the women that He wants us to be and that we want to be. I don't think anyone likes to lie in a puddle all day. We want to be that type of person. We can find that, and that's where the true joy comes from. And that's what I hope that women will, at the end of this book, go, I feel stronger and I feel closer to God and I understand Him more and me and life, and I can do this.
You write about the power of agency,
Yes.
Which many women, have you not heard, say, I wish I didn't have it. I wish that some days I could I could not decide, because there's the fear and the doubt coming in there that we've talked about. But not only is there power in choosing, but power comes to you from the Spirit when that happens positively.
You bet. When you take on that responsibility unto yourself, and that gift, that agency is a gift, it's our right. And we say we're going to embrace that, and we're going to just go forward, and we're going to try to do the best that we can. And we're not going to be perfect in it, but that's okay, because we're willing. And we are empowered by the Spirit. We are led by Him. And we do and we will surprise ourselves at the things that we can do. And we'll look back and go, I had no idea I could do this. I was afraid I couldn't. Mm-hmm. Some things we might not be able to do. I love to sing, but I'm never going to be on American Idol. When they say, if you work hard, all your dreams will come true. They won't. Not all of them. And that's okay too. Because the ones that God has tailored for you, when you have that confidence and that desire and that choice to go after them, those will be the ones that matter most.
Don't you love Michelle Wilson? She's absolutely charming. Does This Insecurity Make Me Look Fat is the title of her new book, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope that not only have you been filled with information and new ideas and new concepts, or been reminded of something you've forgotten, but that we've brought some peace into your life that you can hold on to throughout your week.